For those of you that have been in crypto a long time, you've probably heard of Dash. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies that's out there. And it was actually formed in January 2014, but it was formed under another name. So originally, it was called Xcoin. That name didn't really fly, or for whatever reason. So within 30 days, they changed it to Darkcoin, which again, an interesting choice of names. And actually, they had to change the name again. It took about a year this time, but they were running into increasing issues, which exchanges were reluctant to list the coin because of the connotations of the name and the dark web, and especially after Silk Road and everything else. And so the name Darkcoin never stuck. And so actually they went with Dash. Which is digital cash, and it's also a bit of a play on the fact that they were at the time going to be much faster than BTC. There weren't many tokens out there, and so it was a Dash, fast movement, etc. So most of you may not be aware, but actually Dash is a fork of Bitcoin itself. So it is a peer-to-peer electronic payment currency, whatever you may want to call that. And its primary focus, as I mentioned, was twofold. So there was the speed of the transaction. So BTC, it is pretty slow for how amazing it is. It does basically 7 transactions per second. And for any of you that tried to send BTC, it doesn't matter if the people talk about the Lightning Network. You either get your transaction in 10 minutes, or if it's particularly congested, it could take hours. So it's still pretty painful. Well, Dash in 2014/15 was going with 56 transactions per second. So around about 8 times as many transactions. But the other thing that Dash was very heavily pushing was its privacy angle. And, you know, a lot of the original cryptocurrencies that came out after BTC were privacy coins, as we call them. Let's just have a look. So this is a bit of boring stuff, but you know, it's a research one, so we have to kind of talk about it. Dash operates in a 2-tier network. It consists of master nodes and regular nodes. This is sort of a proof of stake proposal. Master nodes responsible for facilitating functions such as instant transactions, budget proposals, and voting on the network governance, where the regular nodes perform the standard functions of verifying and validating the data. That's as much as I felt I needed to learn about it, but feel free. I'm going to show you where the white paper is later, and you can crack on and read through that yourself, or I will post this article here, which, oops, I've scrolled to the bottom because I was so enjoying reading it earlier on today, which gives you a complete guide on Dash and how it operates in a lot more detail. I just summarized it in 2 sentences. So forgive me there. Go back to this one for now. There's something in there that I just said, which may have actually started to make you break out into a cold sweat. And that was network governance issues. That's right, because Dash is actually the OG. It is the longest running DAO. Correct. Decentralized Autonomous Organization. So they vote on protocols and everything else. This one's been going around since 2014. So it is the OG. Now, I want to go back to the privacy side of things. So instead of within the technology, in inverted commas, of how Dash operates, there's an additional feature. And I just want to stress the word additional because I'm going to come back to that a little bit later on, in which any transaction that is made through the Dash blockchain can be completely, and I do mean completely, anonymous. So that's where the privacy side of things comes along. So it's a thing called private send. And I don't know if any of you, again, have heard of this. It's very similar to CoinJoin, which is what you can use on the BTC network. Yeah, you heard that right. BTC, I'm going to come on to that, so hold that thought. BTC, you can actually send transactions anonymously. I mean anonymously. And how both CoinJoin and private send work is that they mix a lot of transactions together in a pot, and then they send them out at exactly the same time. So you cannot determine who the sender or the recipient, or who the sender was to that particular recipient, because everything was just mixed in a pot. And that's how they create this privacy side of things. Now, that's a completely different technology to how Monero and Zcash or Zcash do it. But yeah, that's the way that Dash have gone down. Just want to make sure I haven't missed anything. Allowed users to make anonymous transactions by mixing multiple transactions together, so you couldn't determine the origin of any one particular transaction. We've covered that. Okay, so Dash was the brainchild, if you want, or the CEO was a guy called Evan Duffield, who basically ran it until 2017. He left the position of CEO in 2017. However, he's remained as an advisor effectively since then. Dash is actually run by a company called Dash Core Group. They managed both the blockchain and all of the other sub-functions of Dash on behalf of the DAO. So go through it all again. So we'll go through the website and everything else in a bit, don't worry. So advantages and then disadvantages, I suppose. So I've already kind of talked about the speed, in inverted commas, over Bitcoin, which is there. But actually it's also the transaction fees as well. So in terms of transaction fees, with BTC, you're still talking, although it's low dollars, it still is around about the dollars mark. Whereas, the Dash, it certainly is the pennies, much lower, 1 to 3 cent per transaction. So considerably lower to use that. We'll go through this, but it can be used as a form of payment. Obviously, that's what it's there for. But it's also been quite widely adopted. I think it comes down. I can go scroll down. Merchants and servers, 159,000 plus merchants and services use it. But somewhere tells me there's 8,220 transactions. I'm on the wrong one. Bear with me. Here we go. So these are all the ATMs and tellers across the world in which you can use Dash. I'm not going to bother zooming in, but I will just tell you that there are over 5,000 merchants worldwide that accept Dash as a form of payment. Some pretty big companies, but generally they're not. The vast majority of them are apparently based in South America. I mean, this chart would tell you differently, but the research that I've read is that the vast majority are based in South America. I wonder if we zoom in and that changes. Can I zoom in? Doesn't seem to update as I do. With it particular usage and strong following in Venezuela, actually. So I say the partners with various payment processors, including Bit, Refill, and Uphold. I'm not going to lie, I never heard of even those two till today, but there you go. I don't know why I keep on messing around zooming in on that. Sorry, if you want to, I will post this again, but the advantages and disadvantages of private send is kind of summarized there. So it goes into a lot more detail. We've done that. In terms of the ecosystem, I mean, it looks just by looking at this that there is a fairly widespread ecosystem, which is obviously what you want. If you want to see all these payments being used, we've already seen that there's been $4.5 billion worth of payments since its inception. Again, you can zoom in and you can kind of see where some of these are, what they're used for, and where they're done. I'll let you read all of that in your own time because it's quite annoying that you have to keep on clicking in and out of it. And then you can just read this A to Z of all of the good things about Dash in this article here, which again, is annoying because you kind of have to do that just to scroll down each time. So, yeah. In terms of disadvantages, I don't know whether or not we call this disadvantages just yet, but Dash has had a bit of a checkered history with regulators and the SEC, to the point actually where in 2019 the SEC produced a list of cryptocurrencies. You've got to remember back then there wasn't as many cryptocurrencies as there are now, but they produced a list of cryptocurrencies that it deemed as a security, and on that list was Dash. It started to build a bit of traction to the point actually where I can't remember what the gentleman's name is, but I've got the article here so we can find it. The Dash Core CEO details SEC communications, and Dash believes that it's established as not a security. The guy is called Ryan Taylor. But effectively, Ryan Taylor went out to meet the SEC, and he explained to them that they couldn't be a security because they didn't actually pass the Howey principles. And one of the key ones that they didn't pass was that, firstly, there was no ICO. So, number one. And secondly, that they didn't actually have a centralized issuer of the token, rather, produced across all of the different nodes, etc. And so it didn't qualify. And the SEC, as I understand it, actually agreed with them. And this kind of makes sense because it's a fork of Bitcoin, again, as you put out there. And so, no, it has not been deemed as a security. So what started off as a bit of a negative push actually got a fairly decent outcome from it there. And I think what annoyed them was this guy leaked the emails and the transcriptions, but it took them 54 phone calls and something like 10 months to get that no action letter. But, it's good that they went and did that, because effectively just ill-informed or couldn't be asked to really think about it. Regulators just went cryptocurrency, bang, that's it. You're a security. And actually Dash were able to prove convincingly to the SEC that they weren't. So great for them. But that's not, unfortunately, where their woes ended. Let me just find. Because Dash has been umbrellaed across a wide range of privacy tokens. It is, considered a privacy token. And that had some repercussions, because what we saw through 2019, 2020, 21, 22, and even still now being enforced in 2023, is there actually are a lot of countries and districts that don't allow you to purchase privacy coins off exchanges. And so in 2019, Korea's exchange, OK Exchange, one of the biggest ones in the world, as we know, halted trading on Monero, Zcash, Horizon, Super Bitcoin, and Dash, all of them deemed privacy tokens. That continued with Kraken, as this in 2021. But I should say, actually, I've put these articles in the wrong order. I'll come back to that one. Then Dubai. I put that one in the wrong order. That's the EU. Where is it? Dubai. Is this one Dubai? So Japan had already done it. Yeah, Dubai recently announced plans to ban all of the privacy coins. And that was earlier on this year. Kraken has already stopped you from purchasing the likes of Monero and Zcash from their exchange if you're based in the UK. Now, Dash hasn't fallen into that yet. I checked. But it could only be a matter of time until it does that. And so, yeah, it's been caught up with this. It's rather unfortunate ban or nervousness about privacy tokens and the illicit, illegal behavior that criminals are just lining up to do using that form of token. Now, two things. It's probably a little unfair on Dash. Firstly, it doesn't use the same technology as I explained as the likes of Monero, which is actually built into its protocol. With Dash, it's an added extra, if you will. So it's extra button clicks. If you were to just use the standard transaction payment system, it would be completely traceable, pseudo anonymous, whatever the term actually is. And so they're, unfairly, I think, judged as a privacy coin, especially when you think that there is stuff like CoinJoin in which you can do that for BTC. So there is that to consider. Make sure I haven't missed anything. And yeah, it's probably fair to say that actually it has a lot more characteristics in line with BTC still than it does with XRM or Zcash. And I couldn't find any further report on this, but when I was doing some research on it, there was a report from 2020 which actually stated, just reading from it, that it didn't note Dash as an acceptable form of payment on any of the major exchanges on the dark web, nor that they believed criminals were using Dash for illicit transactions. So that was a report that was done by some cyberspace sleuths, I suppose, or regulators, and they even noted that Dash wasn't on their radar as an illicit form of transaction, which goes against what the DOJ said. So this is just going back into the negative connotations it has. But the Department of Justice back in October 2020 linked Dash with Monero and Zcash as high-risk activities. And there's another quote down here somewhere I want to find. AECs are often exchanged for other virtual assets like Bitcoin, which may indicate a cross-virtual asset layering technique for users' attempt to conceal criminal behavior. And there's something else that they put. I can't find it. Think about illicit. Indicative of possible criminal conduct. So, again, they're still getting tarnished with that brush. Now, Dash have gone on the offensive, and they've really tried to change their image in how they are perceived, and they've produced the statistics. It is kind of hard to verify. Well, they've said it's hard to verify it exactly, but they've stated that only 25% of all Dash transactions actually use private send. And that's just based on the transaction volume, so the ones that they can see, they can't see. But it is only an estimation, so we don't really know how accurate that was. But Dash are, unfortunately, a victim of their own PR, because right back at the very beginning, they were, they were very pro privacy. That's exactly what they were pushing themselves to being. As a matter of fact, I'm sorry, I just need to go up this because I don't know where I saved it. Sorry, I took a photo of the white paper, and you'll understand why in a moment. But where would my photo be living? That's the question. Okay, we might just have to go on without it. You'll just have to trust me. It's just a shame. Maybe I'll find it a little bit later on. So at the very beginning, they were keen to point out that, the reason they had to do the fork, or they wanted to introduce this privacy side of things, they were really pushing private send. And it was very heavy on their publicity. But and you could think about going back to their original names, Dark Coin. I mean, it wasn't because they wanted it to be used on the darknet, it's because it was, couldn't be seen. It was dark. So we know that was the way that they were looking. Just having a look, make sure I haven't missed anything. So here is the white paper. And what you can see is Dash, a payments-focused cryptocurrency. But what if I was to tell you that this is actually being edited? This isn't the original white paper, although they'll tell you that it is the original white paper. I can't believe I can't find this picture. But actually, it was first titled the first public privacy-centric cryptographic currency. So it had privacy in the title of the white paper. Now, obviously, that doesn't marry with how they're trying to push it now. So when you go through it on the website, this is what you're presented with. And I couldn't find it particularly, and I'm absolutely gutted. I don't have the picture of this. I don't know if I saved it on the desktop. Doesn't look like it. God knows where I saved it. That's a real shame. But I don't know where it is. When I find it, I will post it in. I'll post it in Discord. But as I say, they were going whole hog here to change that particular connotation. So one of the big negatives is their association with privacy coins, and that can't be denied. Whether or not it's justified or not doesn't necessarily matter. People are still calling it a privacy token, but it actually has some other big issues, and one of them for me has to be scalability. So when we think about peer-to-peer electronic payment systems, we think about currency. Now we think about blockchains and transactions. We think about some of the other currencies that are out there. It's a really crowded sector, and moreover than that, this isn't even at the top of its sector. And what is almost criminal is it had first mover advantage for so many years, and it's never really been able to scale to better that. So as I mentioned to you before, Dash can do 56 transactions per second, which whoop-de-doo, is 8 times more than BTC can do. But if I start throwing some other figures at you, then you're going to see how much it really is struggling, and is there really a need to actually use Dash when there's so many others that are out there? So Loopring, which is a layer 2 protocol on the Ethereum network, 2,000 plus transactions per second. Polygon, 7,000 transactions per second. We've got Avalanche, could do 4,500 transactions per second. Solana, when it works, obviously, can do up to 50,000 transactions per second. Ethereum 2.0, once they actually get the sharding right and they start pulling it in, is alleged it's going to be able to do 100,000 transactions per second. I mean, even if you go and look at Visa, and I haven't checked this, but this number stuck in my head from years ago, so it's probably more now. 1,700 transactions per second. So we go back to Dash and it's 56 transactions per second. It's not exactly setting the world on fire there. So it does have a problem with its scalability, and despite it being particularly cheap fees compared to BTC, it is not cheap compared to most of the other competitors. It is very competitive. Well, they are very competitive against Dash. So that also needs to be taken into consideration. In terms of the roadmap and the future and where they're going, so I mean, this is the roadmap here. The one thing I like about this roadmap, and we will go through the website, I promise you, is they actually tick the ones that they've completed. Because so often you start looking at roadmaps and you don't know if they actually achieved them all. But here they have, and we can kind of see that, excuse me, the main focus at the moment is actually this Dash platform. So rather than a sort of a cloud-based service, they're going to have an actual platform that you can use. And there's an app that you can download, whether you want it on your desktop, on your mobile phone. You do both of those. I didn't bother downloading it because I don't have any Dash to have a look around it. But from the pictures I've seen, it seems pretty user-friendly. So hats on to them. But they are, really pushing this at the moment. You see most of the roadmap, when we scroll down, is just extra versions of the platform within the testnet. And I believe this is where they're really pushing when we get down to 2023. Here we go. Yep. We've still got beta testing for that. It's going to be this quarter, and then look to try and push that out in sort of May, with the May and then the full rollout in June. So that's sort of where it's really going. We'll have to just watch to see whether or not they achieve that. I didn't bother going on things like GitHub, I'll be honest, to just see how active that is. But in terms of sort of their socials, it's been around so long. It does have a huge social following, 416,000 followers on Twitter. It's got YouTube channels, etc. Instagram account button didn't work for whatever reason. Not that I particularly needed to see Dash's Instagram account, but I was hoping to find out some of the stuff in terms of sponsorships, etc., which we'll come on a little bit later on. So as for the website, it's a nice, clean, presentable website. Information's in a logical place. It's not too busy. You can go through it. I would expect a cryptocurrency website that used to be in the top 5 of all cryptocurrencies, granted when there weren't that many, to have a pretty good website. They've been around long enough to know what should catch them and where it goes, but everything's in fairly common sense orders in terms of actually moving through it. It's fairly seamless. Doesn't seem to be any particular bugs. Level of details there. It's easy on the eye, etc. And you can navigate through it very well. So I've got no problems with the website. In terms of tokenomics and everything else, go back to the overview. So here we are, Dash currently ranked at 73 and price is around about $58.11, which is on the last 7 days. I mean, it's been up as high as $60, but it's also down as low as 52. So with a lot of altcoins, still ranging in and around from there. It's got a market cap of 641 million, with a fully diluted market cap of just over 1 billion. Think about that then. It's trading volume over 24 hours is just over 100 million, but that is down to 12%. It has a circulating supply currently of 11 million tokens and a max supply of just under 19 million. One of the things that actually happened when Dash first came out, which I forgot to talk about, was within the first matter of days, there was I don't know if you'd call it a hack or certainly I can't even think, manipulation maybe of the protocol, and 2 million, was it 3 million Dash were pulled into circulation straight away. So that kind of altered the tokenomics and the release schedule there. But there can only ever be 19 million. They haven't changed that, and they're still there. So we go into Monero and we can have a look at Masari, and have a look at a few more details. And this way it gets a bit interesting because its all-time high was 1,252. Its current cycle low, as in this cycle low, has been down at $25. Now that sounds all great, as in, wow, $50, $60 now, and it could potentially 220x from there just to get to its all-time high. That sounds pretty impressive, and it's not something to turn your nose at. But I actually just wanted you to have a look back at this chart here. What's happened? Why is that not showing me the whole chart? There we go. So Dash from the inception on the left-hand side, obviously early days, and then suddenly in the 2017 bull run, this thing went from $8 to actually, according to this one, just under $1,600. So unbelievable rise. Looks like the Burj Khalifa, that thing. Straight up in the sky, and then absolute rip down. 2019, we've already talked about the regulatory actions that were against it. So it had a pretty tough time. And actually, this is, for me, this second bump is all telling. So, and this goes to, you know, my views on Dash, but because of scalability, because of the negative press, because of just the competition in the market, it didn't make anywhere near a dent compared to most altcoins. You think about it, in the 2021 bull run, if they were around in 2017, the 2021 bull run eclipsed the 2017 high. And we only got to $440, so a quarter of the height there. Now, whether that is the negative connotations there were, the lack of exchanges that you could buy it on, the scalability issues, just whatever it was, it's obviously not as popular as what it was in 2017. So its competition has eaten into its market share considerably. And so that worries me going forward, if I'm honest, because there's only going to be more cryptocurrencies out there. And the ones that are currently established and new in this 2021 bull run, Avalanche, Solana, maybe, Polygon, are going to really eat into it again in the next one. And so unless it bucks its ideas, then I don't really see how it's going to perform anywhere near how it's done here. So for me, that is a red flag, I'm afraid. Let's get into the notes. In terms of markets, what we already talked about is geo-restricted. So there's plenty of areas that you can't buy it in the world, but it is available on an awful lot of markets across an awful lot of currency pairs. So, you know, the dollar, the euro, BTC, Ethereum, BNB, you know, they're all there. So if you can buy it, then, you know, it's available to you. It's just whether or not the particular country you are in allows you to do that. In terms of sponsorships, we've kind of covered sponsorships in the past, and I got to say, Dash it's not a huge amount of sponsorship there. So in the past, some UFC fighters have been personally sponsored by Dash, but Dash is not a main sponsor of UFC. And from what I can see, that kind of peaked around about 2017 and 2018. So back when it was a big cryptocurrency. Similarly, you know, Max Kaiser documentary, he went around, you know, I don't know what I'd call it, like mid-state America or wherever, in a camper van that was completely decked out and sponsored by Dash. And so that drove some publicity again in 2018. But other than that, I've not really seen much that stands out. Certainly no sponsorships within F1 or other major sporting events that actually take main sponsorship. No stadiums named after it or anything like that. So whilst I'm not saying there aren't sponsorship deals, there's nothing really there that sort of piques my interest. And you can even have a look here in the treasury. And the only reason I've been, you know, it does mention MMA fighter sponsorship. It didn't mention any others, you know, any other big things. And you think if it did have a big deal, that would go there as well. So yeah. Having a look at the chart. I mean, we've talked about the chart, but this is what it looks like on Logarithmic, just on TradingView. Not great. I'm sorry, but so for me, I'm happy that I've looked into it. It's just reaffirmed that I'm not particularly interested. I'm not particularly interested in the privacy coin sector because I, for now, don't necessarily see myself needing to use that. So, you know, for the vast majority of my altcoins, I'm just trying to convert them into either dollars or BTC. So I need to make profit from it. And I don't see this one as making bigger profit than perhaps some of the other ones that I'm backing. So I won't be going into it any further.